Big changes are coming to the Las Vegas Raiders, and not just small updates. We're talking about real shakeups to the roster under the leadership of Pete Carroll and John Spytek. Some of the players who wore the silver and black last year, they might not be around this season. Surprised? You shouldn't be. Let's start with running back Zamir White. Last season, fans had high hopes. We saw clips of him training hard, building muscle, looking like a beast. But when it came time to perform, the numbers didn't lie. 65 carries for just 183 yards. That's not going to cut it. He lost his spot early, and now with new faces like Ashton Gentry and Raheem Mostert in the building, the pressure's on. If we're being honest, Zamir might only have a 25% chance of making the final roster. Now, before we get deeper into the news, before listening to the latest news, subscribe to the channel, like it, and don't forget to press the bell icon. Let's move on to the new news. Let's talk about another running back, Dylan Lobb. He's in a better spot, but still not safe. Last season, he didn't get many chances, mostly because of ball security issues. He fumbled, and that's a big red flag for rookies. Still, he brings something to special teams, which gives him a shot. Right now, his chances, about 55%. The Raiders also added more speed to the wide receiver room, but that makes it tougher for someone like Tyreek Mallister. He's lightning fast with legit 4.3 speed, but speed alone won't earn a roster spot. The team brought in new talent through the draft, and that makes Mallister's chances slim, maybe just 10%. Let's shift to the offensive line. Thayer Munford, a 7th-round pick from 2022, is entering the final year of his contract. Right now, there are already 8 offensive linemen ahead of him. Names like Alex Kappa and Caleb Rogers have pushed him down the depth chart. Unless the Raiders keep 9 linemen, Munford's time might be up. Thayer Munford is walking a tightrope. Last season, he played in 11 games and gave up 5 sacks. Those numbers don't inspire confidence, especially when you're protecting the quarterback. He had real trouble at the tackle spot, and that could be exactly why the Raiders decided to draft players like Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. Now the question is simple. Will the team keep 8 offensive linemen or 9? If it's 9, Munford might squeeze in. But if they roll with 8, his chances pretty much disappear. Right now, it's 50-50. Moving over to the defense, let's talk linebackers. Amari Burney is an interesting case. He had 17 tackles, a sack, and 3 tackles for loss last year. Not bad. He was drafted during the old McDaniels and Ziegler era, but here's the good part. He fits Pete Carroll and John Spytek's style. They want athletes. Burney is fast, tough, and strong. On top of that, he contributes on special teams, which makes him valuable. Honestly, he's got about a 75% shot to make the team. Some even think he could beat out Devin White for a starting spot. That's a bold take, but not impossible. The only twist? There are others fighting for that role too. One of them is Tommy Eichenberg. Drafted last year from Ohio State, he didn't get many chances to play because the Raiders had Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo. But with Spillane gone now, Eichenberg's path just got a lot clearer. He's known for his work ethic and passion. This guy eats, sleeps, and breathes football. If that means anything to the new staff, and it should, he's likely staying. I'd say he has a 70% chance of making the roster. Finally, let's talk about a dark horse, Amari Gaynor. Gaynor might be the sleeper pick at linebacker. He hasn't made big headlines yet, but behind the scenes, he's grinding hard. From what teammates are saying, especially the captains, he's been doing everything right this offseason. Don't be surprised if he ends up starting alongside Elandon Roberts. Gaynor is proving he wants it more than most. Amari Gaynor continues to impress, and honestly, his chances of making the final roster look strong. I'd put it at 75%. That's even a notch higher than Tommy Eichenberg. Why? Because Gaynor brings something unique. Real coverage skills. That's not something every linebacker in this rotation can offer. And with the Raiders drafting Cody Lindenberg, that move might actually push Eichenberg down the depth chart, but it doesn't hurt Gaynor. If anything, Gaynor's value just went up. Now let's switch to the safety position. specifically Chris Smith, the former Georgia Bulldog. Back in college, Smith was a force, smart, disciplined, a true leader on one of the best defenses in the country. But in the NFL, it hasn't translated yet. Here's the problem. While Smith is respected in the locker room, the Raiders' current scheme demands long, athletic defensive backs, and that's not Smith's profile. He's not the fastest, not the longest, and doesn't stand out on special teams. That's where others like Lonnie Johnson Jr. and even Trey Taylor may have the edge. Smith's best chance to stick around is the lack of depth at safety, but even then, it's an uphill climb. Realistically, his odds sit at just 20%. Now, let's move to players who weren't on the opening day roster last season but still got into games. Guys who got chances but might not be as lucky this time. First up, running back Chris Collier. Athletically, Collier checks a lot of boxes. He's fast, explosive, and put up strong numbers in college at Lock Haven. But talent alone isn't enough in a crowded Raiders backfield. With names like Dylan Laub, Zamir White, and Alexander Madison already competing for touches, Collier's path to the 53-man roster is razor thin. Right now, he's got about a 5% chance, no sugarcoating it. Let's be honest, Chris Collier faces a steep climb. With the Raiders likely keeping just 4 running backs, he has to shine on special teams to even stay in the conversation. If he doesn't prove that value, his spot is as good as gone. That's the harsh truth in a crowded backfield. Now to Alex Bachman, a name that almost sounds like a law firm, but on the field, his odds are slim. Despite 3 catches for 31 yards last year and proving a few doubters wrong, his path back to the roster looks just about impossible. He's a grinder, no doubt, but I'd give him only a 1% shot. Hey, lightning struck once. Could it strike again? Moving on to Christian Wilkerson. Every year it's the same story. He's talented, works hard, but just doesn't crack the 53. Yes, he's got that New England connection. And yes, he's built like an NFL wideout at 6'1" and 214 pounds. But this is a tough group to break into. If the Raiders are looking for someone with his build and skill set, it's likely going to be Kyle Phillips, not Wilkerson. That gives Wilkerson maybe a 2% chance of sticking around. Now, here's a wild card. Thomas Harper. Harper isn't on many fans' radar yet, but he should be. Word is, the Raiders staff quietly likes him more than they've let on. He posted a 77 PFF coverage grade last season, and with free safety depth looking shaky, he might sneak in. He's not a lock, but he's in the conversation. Jeremy Chinn, Lonnie Johnson Jr., and Chris Smith Jr. aren't known for coverage. That leaves a real window of opportunity wide open. I'll give Harper a 40% shot. Now let's talk about a fighter, Charles Snowden. Snowden turned heads last season with his relentless effort. He wasn't part of the initial 53, but he earned his way back. That's the kind of attitude the Raiders respect. He's long, physical, and doesn't stop working. That gives him a shot, but like everyone on the bubble, he'll need to show something extra in camp. Charles Snowden was thrown into the fire last season, and he responded with grit. With injuries piling up on the Raiders' defensive line, Snowden stepped in and delivered 39 tackles, 3 for loss, and multiple starts when it mattered most. That alone deserves respect. But the battle for a defensive end spot this year? Brutal. The Raiders brought back Malcolm Kuntze, and Tyree Wilson's development is a major storyline. Andre Carter is waiting in the wings, and undrafted rookie John Joyner is making waves. Even Tonka Hemingway and J.J. Peggs might shift over to defensive end roles depending on scheme flexibility. There's depth and there's competition. Snowden still has a shot, a solid 45% chance in my book, but his fate might be tied to how the team values its defensive tackle rotation. There's talk that the staff could go heavy there, potentially keeping just 3 true defensive ends and 7 defensive tackles. If that happens, Snowden could be the odd man out. Now, let's talk Andre Carter. Don't sleep on this guy. A few years ago, some scouts thought Carter had first-round talent. He's got the frame, long, athletic, explosive. If there's a battle to watch in camp, it's Snowden versus Carter. This isn't just about making the roster, it's about who brings the most juice off the edge. No off-field distractions with Carter, and if he shows consistency in camp, I'm giving him a slight edge, 50% chance to stick. Next up, Matthew Butler. Drafted in the 5th round out of Tennessee, Butler hasn't had the easiest path. Different coaching staffs, shifting systems, it's been anything but stable. When the Raiders first picked him up, there were whispers that his passion for the game didn't quite match the NFL grind. If that perception hasn't changed, it could hurt him. But if Butler comes into this camp with fire, all bets are off. The Raiders value interior linemen who can rotate and adapt, and Butler's strength lies in that versatility. He's not a lock, but his future in Vegas depends on how badly he wants it, because this coaching staff needs heart as much as it needs talent. Let's talk about one of the most uncertain positions heading into Raiders training camp, the defensive line. Specifically, let's focus on Matthew Butler. Butler's journey has been a roller coaster. Drafted out of Tennessee with high hopes, he's struggled to secure a lasting spot on the roster. Despite a brief return last season, the message is clear. The Raiders aren't fully convinced. That became even more obvious when they aggressively restocked the defensive tackle group this offseason. Butler is now staring up a steep hill. At best, he's got a 10% shot to crack the final 53. More likely, practice squad territory. But here's what keeps his name alive: Max Crosby. One of the locker room leaders has reportedly praised Butler's growth and effort. Sometimes a little wake-up call can change a player. Butler's had his. Now it's all about whether he can respond. Moving on to another new face, Zach Carter. The former Bengals defensive tackle brings experience, but the competition is fierce. With the Raiders leaning into youth and raw upside, Carter will have to show more than just effort. He'll need to show transformation. If he bulks up and flashes in camp, there's a 20% chance he sneaks onto the roster. But the margin is razor thin. Now to the cornerbacks, where the stakes are just as high. Sam Webb is one of the most persistent grinders in the building. He hasn't cracked the starting lineup, but he's been a consistent presence on the practice squad, and coaches respect his work ethic. At 6'2", he's got the size, but lacks the top-end athleticism that this regime values. His odds? Around 20%. He'll need a standout camp performance to flip the narrative. And finally, Ka'ir Kai Blue Kelly. He brings some slot coverage ability, a skill the Raiders need, but like Webb, his athletic traits don't leap off the screen. He's not the long, explosive defensive back that tends to thrive in this system. Unless he shows serious development, he's looking at another uphill climb. Also, at 20%, his best chance may come through special teams or if an injury opens the door. In total, we're looking at a group of players who once helped this team but may not survive the next chapter. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a sign of progress. The Raiders are pushing forward, bringing in new talent, and setting a higher standard.